Hello, welcome in today's video. So in today's video, you're just going to look at form validation with React Hook Forms and Zod in a TypeScript Next.js project. So if you have your Next.js project and you know very well, we have been massively handling forms in our SaaS project and full stack projects. So knowing how to use Zod and React Hook Forms together, they are really powerful. And in this video, I'm just going to break down how to use it. And here is a simple form that we are just going to build in this video. So we have our simple form. I'm just going to press F12 so that we can see what is happening. So I have this normal form. If I just come here and I try to create an account, it goes ahead and shows all the validation errors. You can see username must be at least 3 characters, invalid email, password is too short, and all these kind of errors. Okay, so these are custom errors that you can define, okay, using Zod. So we're just going to see, and if I just go ahead and try to use a fake filter, for instance, like this, you can see now all the things are gone. Now I can create an account and you can see I have my data here. Okay, I have the email, password, and the username. Okay, so we're just going to look at how to validate it using Zod, and we are going to use how to get the data and pass all the necessary things using React Hook Form. And together we have, of course, our documentation documenting everything we are going to do in this video. Okay, so this is going to be a nice thing. You have all the documentation where you can refer what you are going to be doing in this video together with understanding what you are going to build. Okay, so see you inside and we build together. Hello, welcome. In today's video, we are going to look at form validation with React Hook Forms and Zod in a TypeScript Next.js project. Okay, so this has been also so much requested, and we are going to be using React Hook Forms and Zod in most of our projects. So before I did any project with TypeScript, I wanted first to make this video so that in all our next videos we are going to be using Zod with React Hook Forms. Okay, so let's first add a form, and then we shall see how or why do we need React Hook Form and Zod, and like what Zod is and what does Zod going to help us. So I'm just going to start by adding some sample form we are going to be using, and this video might take a really short time, so I'm just going to try to make it as short as possible. So I'm just going to first add a form that we can just work with. So I'm just going to go here on Flowbyte. You can search for cards just like this. Okay, so you'll be brought to this CSS Tailwind CSS cards. Now scroll down here to where you are seeing where they say a card with form inputs here. Just click on this while we have these form inputs. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and now below this I'm just going to paste this. Okay, so I've pasted that. So we have to do some changes. The first thing is to convert all our class into class name. So the trick I normally use is to select this class here with these equal signs. I say play Control F and then Control H to replace, and then I want to replace it with class name, then with equals, and then place this, and now this replaces all. Now also go to where there is 4, so you can select also where there is 4, just like this with equal signs, Control F, okay, and then Control H, and then replace this with HTML4, then equal signs, then replace, then next. Okay, so I think we don't have any more errors. If I save this, okay, so one thing, if we just now go back to the UI, so you see we have our form. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and do this, center this by adding one class onto this, which is going to be mx auto, just like that. So this is going to place it in the center, yeah, just like this. So we have a form. Now one more thing, as you can see, this has this bold black, but if you check on the form input, they just quickly check on the input, you can see the input has bg gray 50, border gray 300, text gray, text rounded, and you can see on focus we have ring blue 500, which we are not seeing right now. You can see. So to fix this, normally what you need to do is to first format all your forms using to remove the default formatting. You have to use Tailwind forms. So one thing, when you're going to work with forms, you need to install actually Tailwind forms. So there is this plugin at Tailwind forms, just like that. So just go and get this plugin, scroll to what you're going to see here on GitHub, where you see this link says GitHub Tailwind, Tailwind Labs, Tailwind Forms. Just click on this one, okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and install this package, npm install this. So just simply copy and go to our project here. Let's go ahead and install npm install dependency Tailwind forms, just like that. So then the next thing you need to do is just to add is a plugin in your Tailwind config. You need to add Tailwind forms as a plugin. Okay, so simply copy this require Tailwind forms, just copy it. Okay, and then this one has finished installing. Let's go Tailwind config, scroll down to what is plugins, just simply add this as a plugin. Okay, so we just need to refresh our page. Now you'll see there is a difference. So go back here, and now even without refreshing, you can see now our forms are looking nice. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and remove remember me and lost password. I'm just going to make some few changes to this. So I'm just going to scroll down while we have this div. So we have this whole div here. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, and then we have a button here which says log into your account. I'm just going to say create account. Okay, create account, and maybe I'm just say I can so go ahead and remove this. Okay, and then I'm just going to add one more input. So here we normally have username. So I'm just going to copy this and let's paste it down here. So let's first go to the first one and we change this. First, this one is going to be HTML for, let's say, username, maybe, or it could be full name whatsoever. Then this one just going to say username, then type, just say text, name, username, ID, username. Okay, as simple as that. Placeholder, just going to say John Doe. Okay, you could just even say John, just like that. Okay, let's see how this form looks now. Okay, so we have now a simple form which has three fields. Okay, the username, email, and password. Okay, so first of all, so as you can see, this form, the purpose of the form is to gather data from a user. The user comes, enters some data. So the first problem we have is we are not sure of the type of data the user can put in. First of all, the user can decide not to put in, or accidentally can click on create account, and then this is going to go ahead and submit the data. And by the way, we can first remove this required, the HTML validation. Okay, you can just go ahead and remove this. Actually, in production, you would even leave it there, it has no problem. But for now, to see what we are talking about, we can even just go ahead and remove this. Okay, so you will see that now you can create, and this tries to submit the information. As you can see, username empty, email and password empty. So it tries to submit the data, and that's how the forms behave. It tries to submit the data even when a user has not put in data. So a user can go ahead and put in some information, and the information might not be true. Someone can just forget and put JB. Okay, I can say even just put jb.com, and then here password maybe test. So you may just like you have this information, okay, but then this information might not be valid. For instance, this is not a valid email, and then the password maybe you want them to be 6 characters and even more validation. Okay, so there are two things where we are working with the form. One, we need an easy way to receive the form data so that we can post-process it. For instance, after a user has added the data and has clicked on create account, we need to efficiently collect data from these inputs. Okay, and maybe we send it to the API, or we save it to the database, whatsoever we want with the form. The second thing we need to validate. Okay, we need to validate the data that a person has put here is the actual type of data we need. If a person puts a username and it's supposed to be 3 characters, then we should let them know, or we should validate that information before the user actually submits the data. So we need two things. We need a way to receive the data from the user, and also we need a way to validate the information from the user is submitting. Okay, so that's why we are using two libraries. The Zod. So Zod is a schema validation library. So it actually looks at the data, and then it looks at the validation rules you have defined in the schema, and then it starts validating or telling that this input does not match what is required, and then it will render the error here. Okay, so now the React hook form works together with Zod to make this a simple process. The first one, Zod will produce or will provide the validation rules. Then React hook form will handle the rendering, will handle the submitting or collecting of this data from the form efficiently, and that's why we need these two libraries. So if you just go in the description, you will find this link to this blog. Okay, not blog, to this guide. Okay, how to use Zod and React hook form. So form validation is a fundamental aspect of building robust applications and ensures that the data submitted by users conforms to the expected form data and the business rules. So we have Zod, which is a TypeScript fast schema declaration and validation library. As I had said, it is a schema declaration and a validation library. It improves type definitions and data validation in TypeScript by allowing developers to declare the validators and with, of course, custom errors and all that kind of stuff. Then React Hook Form is a lightweight high performance library for managing forms in React applications. So this one can help us to collect the data and everything we need from it. So the first thing to use these two packages, okay, as you have seen, just to know that Zod will provide the validation rules. React Hook Form will help us get the data from the form. As simple as that. This one is for validating. This one is for collecting data from the form. Okay, so the first thing is to install the packages. Okay, there are actually two packages, but then we have another one in between here which you call resolvers, which actually makes it possible for React Hook Form to work with Zod. Okay, so this makes it makes it possible. This one is the one to join both the Zod and React Hook Form. So just copy this. Let's go and install those two packages. So I'm just going to go ahead here and install the React Hook Form, the resolvers, and Zod. As we said, React Hook Form is for collecting data, Zod for validating, resolvers is for connecting Zod to React Hook Form. Okay, so just go ahead and install. Okay, so we're just going to look at the steps you are going to take. So the first thing is creating a schema using Zod. Now, you can first go to Zod documentation and actually see how they handle the, for instance, the validation. And the validations are based on data types. Okay, and for instance, let's say you have strings, you want to validate something like a string. For instance, you can use Z, which is for, like, stands for Zod dot string. So this method dot string is just validating that the input you are putting must be a string. As simple as this. So when you say Z dot string, it will first check if the input you have entered actually is a string. When that one is passed, it goes and check the second rule. So this is how we pass the rules. Dot string is a rule. Dot max is a rule. So for instance, when you say max 5, it will just check if this input you have entered has a maximum number of 5 characters. Okay, so it should have 5 and below. So the same thing, minimum dot length. So for instance, if you want a string to be strictly 5 characters, then you say dot length 5. Like for instance, to check if this is an email, you use dot email. If to check this is a URL, you use dot URL. So that's how you can do it. There is some other ones, like for instance, you can pass regex expressions. You can pass, for instance, if it includes a certain string. So for instance, you can say z dot includes, maybe you pass in a word here. Okay, then we have dot starts with, dot ends with. So you can have all those kind of validations, and you can see it is really precise. Okay, they have also transformations. For instance, if you want to trim an input, for instance, to remove white spaces, you can use this dot trim. If you want to put in a lowercase or uppercase, whatever the person has typed in, you can use lowercase or to uppercase. So you can also go ahead and pass in like custom errors, and there are two ones I normally use. The required error when, and by the way, this is not a must to pass this, but if you want to customize whatever you want the error to be, you can say required error, name is required, and then you can say invalid type error, name must be a string. For instance, when you just pass in like this, you can have these two like this, and the rest you can also give the custom errors like this. So wherever you just want to give, you can give the message must be 5 or more characters wrong. So you can just go and see this is how it does its things. Okay, so let's just go a step by step of what you are going to do. So the first thing is to create a schema. So these ones you are seeing here are some of the validation rules, but then there is how we need to create a schema. So if you just go back here, so to create a schema, we use first of all, you can put Zod, and you can pass an object of all the inputs, okay? And the good practice is to first create a folder called schemas, where you can put all your schemas. So in the root here, you can minimize this, and in the root you can create a new folder and you say schemas, as simple as that. And then in these schemas you can just say schema.ts, just like this. And this is where we are going to be defining all our schemas. Now you can have different forms, and that means those different forms, they can have their schemas here, okay? So how do we actually define a schema? The defining a schema is just the way we define variables. The only thing is that you use the z.object, and then inside it you can start passing in the stuff. So the first thing is to import Zod. So I can just say export, okay, const, okay, and then you can give a schema a name. For instance, maybe register schema. I can just say register form schema, just like this, is equal to, and then you say z. Now you import z from Zod, just like this, import z from Zod, okay, and then you say dot, okay, and then you can say Zod dot object, and then you can now go ahead and pass an object containing all the form fields. So this is the syntax, okay? As you can see here, we have this is equal z dot object. So this is the first step, okay? You create export const, then you give your schema a name. Let's say register form schema. This can be sign in form schema, product form schema, category form schema. So you can just give your schema, or you're just going to define a schema that is going to hold all your validations, okay? So inside here you start defining now the rules, okay? So here we put the validation rules for each form field, just like that, okay? So for instance, our case right now, the first one we have is the username, okay? So the first one we have in our form, we have username. So you can just come and copy this, and then in your schema you can just go ahead and pass this as the key. You can see email, password. So these ones are the keys, or they are the form fields that you are going to use. By the way, these are the ones you are going to use as names, okay? So just say email, okay, and now you can see we are doing exactly what we have here. For instance, z.string or something. So inside here you just go ahead and say email, and then you pass the validation, okay? Now you can pass, of course, as many rules as possible. So for instance, we can just say here, and you say username, so that is the key, and then here we say this z.string, okay? As simple as this. This could be enough, as simple as that. Now this one validates that the username must be of type string. So if a person types in a number, this one is going to give an error, Okay, now normally in this one also, this one validates that someone should pass in something. Okay, so normally this one you can pass in a custom message or a custom error message inside here. You can see you pass in an object containing the error message, and you must use required error. Okay, for this case, so you could pass in an object. It's not a must, but you can just say required error, and then you say that username is required. Username is required. Okay, so you can just pass in a custom error like this, and then you just go ahead and you can see we have the first one. You can just go ahead and put another one, for instance, dot. Okay, so you could just pass in another one. Let's say for this case we want to pass in like this, mean. Okay, so we can pass in mean. I say dot mean. Okay, and then this one you can pass in the characters. For instance, username must be 3 characters, and then here we can pass in the object which has the message, and you can just say username must be at least 3 characters, just like that. I want you to be careful on how you are passing. Look, I gave example here. You pass this, and then you pass an object whereby you are passing this here. So this one is validating the username. Now you keep on chaining. You keep on chaining. For instance, if there is maximum, you can go ahead and chain. For instance, max. Okay, you could just come here and say max, and then you do the same thing. You pass in maybe let's say maximum of 8, and then you go ahead and pass in here, and then you can just say message. Okay, and then you say username, okay, cannot exceed 8 characters. Cannot exceed 8 characters, just like that. So you can just keep on chaining. You can just keep on chaining different validation rules. Dot max, the way they specified them in here. You have the length, you have this, all these ones you want, you can keep on chaining them. Okay, you can keep on chaining them, as simple as that. Okay, so in this case we can just leave like this. Now we can go ahead and pass in the next one. Okay, so we can just come and pass in the next one. The next one we have is email. So for instance, we have the email. So the email, we want it to be, of course, the string and the email. So you can just say here email. Just going to bring it here, email, and then I can just say z dot string, and then we can also go ahead and pass in a custom. And for the string, you must pass in either this the required error, okay, or invalid. So you can just say here required error, and you say username is required. In this case, it can just be the required error can be just say email is required. Email is required. Now in this case, let's not pass it so that we see what will happen. So I'm not going to pass this. I'm just going to go ahead and I say also dot email, just like this. Okay, so you can just put 2 like that, and you can see here you can also give this custom message. Now I also want to see if you don't give the custom message, what will happen. So in this case, we are given like this, a message on the email and this here. So you have already seen. So we want to see if you don't provide custom messages, what happens. Okay, So then finally we have the password. This one just going to simply copy. So here down, let's put password, and for it to just going to provide the required error password is required, and then the message password is too short, should be 6 characters minimum. Okay, as simple as this. So this is the first step. The first step is to go ahead and define all your rules. So these ones are validation rules. Okay, that is the first thing that you do. Okay, so the second thing next is to use the use form hook. Okay, so we all know how we normally get this, so you can just go ahead in this here. And by the way, before we put this, we could create as this. Let me just go in components, create here the register form dot tsx. Okay, and then just go here and copy this form. So this is a good thing, you should adopt this to leave this one as a server component. So I'm just going to cut this. I could just like simply cut this whole thing, or I could just cut only the form. What should I do? Let me just take only the form. Okay, so let me just first copy the form, copy it, and go here and just say rfc, and just say simply return the form, just like that. And then let's just go to back to the page, and where we have this, let me just simply put register form, as simple as that. So generally on the UI we shouldn't have any changes. This is the way it was, no any change. So now let's go to the register form. We'll do everything from this side. Okay, so the first thing is here is to use the use form hook, and we have been using this. So you can just say const, and then in here you can get many things from the use form hook. Okay, so you just have this use form hook, and first of all you can get the register function, handle submit function, and then you can also get the form state. Okay, you can get the form state, and then on this form state you can go ahead and destructure more things. Like I think you can get the errors, and what else can you get from there? So you can get let's see, we can just get register, hand submit, and this, and you have errors. Yeah, so that is the most important thing we need here. Also the reset, you can use reset to reset the form, as simple as this. Put a comma here. So from the form state we want the errors. Okay, so now this is where the technique comes in. So with this use form, this is normally how we get it from JavaScript. Now if you're using TypeScript with Zod, the thing we need to do is inside this use form, inside here we can pass in some things. Okay, we can pass in some things. So what we can pass in here is this, the resolver. Okay, so we pass in the object, and in this object we can pass in the resolver. Okay, so we just say we pass in the object, and then here you say resolver, just like this. And then here we just say, I think it is Zod resolver. So just get this Zod resolver, and it is from this, I guess. It is import Zod resolver from hook form at resolvers Zod. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, so this comes from hook form resolvers Zod, just like that. and then inside this resolver is actually where we pass in the schema. So you can just say register schema just like that, and that's it. So you can just have a it just as simple as this. Okay, so you can just have as simple as this. You will find that now this is how we actually join. This is how we join the use form with the Zod. So this is how we combine Zod using with use form. We use this resolver keyword inside the use form, and then we pass in the Zod resolver, which actually takes in the schema. So if you just look at this over here, you can see it has username, which is string, and all these other ones. Okay, so that is one thing that we have done. So after doing this, okay, they just tell you give every input a different name. So we have to pass in this to register all the inputs. Okay, so go ahead and register all the inputs. So to register the inputs, and you can first confirm you have no errors on the UI before we move on. So they're saying that React hook form use form is not a function. Okay, so just go and confirm if everything is okay. We imported the use form. We imported the use form. Use form resolver, Zod resolver. We passed in the register form. Can I refresh? Okay. So what is this error all about? There's some things here. Okay, so use client. Okay, so just like that. You can see, by the way, and that is a good thing. I got this. You can see it has nothing to do. They don't tell us to use client, but whenever you use React hook forms, you have to use client. But you have seen what I've done. I've right clicked from this area and went on just here on Google, just try to search about it, and quickly you can see here, please check that you have included the use client. So I think that is the problem. So you just come here and say use client. Okay, and we should be good to go. Okay, and I think here, even in this, I put it there. If you check here, I put his client here. I don't know how we forgot to do that, but it was good that you saw I searched this error quickly. I got the answer. Okay, so now next is registering all the form inputs, and how we register them is by using this register here, and then you pass in the name. Okay, so just go ahead and register. So let's start with the username. So just come to the input here and pass in register. Okay, and let's register this one as user name. And it is good that you register this as the names you used in your schema. So whatever you used, so it is good that you register the names you used in your schema here. Okay, for instance, username, so stick to those ones. So here is username, and just go ahead and email register this. So just say dot register, and then you pass email, and then next is password. So I'm just going to go here and also register the password. So just say register, sorry, you just register, and then here you see password, just like this. Okay. So next is create a function that will be called on submit. So you can just say handle register. So you can just come here on top. Now normally this one is going to be an async function. So you can just say async function handle like register, for instance. Okay, just like this. And now this function is what you're just going to pass in on the form. Okay, so you can just see on submit, then you pass in, just a second, here you pass in handle submit. Now this handle submit you are passing in is this one, which comes from the use form, this one, handle submit here. And you have seen we have already used the register to register the inputs. Now handle submit is to be able to submit the data. So inside here, I'm just going to go ahead and pass in this handle register method. So just like this. Okay. Okay, so we just have on submit, handle submit, and then we pass in the handle register method. Okay, you can see here handle submit, and then you pass in this function that is getting this. Okay. Okay, so now that we have done registered all our form inputs, now the next thing to do is handling errors. Okay, so now on handling the errors, the only thing is to pass this object. You pass this and you first check if the errors dot email they exist, and then again you go ahead and you pass this. Okay, so we could just go and say for this is the username, so we can first go for this username. So below here we can first check that if I think it is username dot errors. So errors, okay, it is, you check the errors dot username for this case. Okay, if errors dot username, if that exists, then we can just go ahead and then we do a p tag. Of course, we can give it a class name, or for instance text red 600. Okay, of course with text sm, and then inside here we can just go ahead and pass in errors dot username. Okay, and then for instance dot message, just something like this. Okay, so now we get TypeScript saying this, the type string of field error merge field error and define is not assignable type React node. So they are taking this to be a username to be a React node, and this is because we don't have the shape of our data. Okay, so this one thing we have to do that we have not done is that we have to define the type of our data. Okay, so now to solve this error here, there are two ways. The one I would not recommend is to say as a string. This would solve the problem because it will just take this simple as a string, as simple as this. Okay, but I don't recommend this. So what you're just going to do is to go ahead and define our data, this data here. We are having here the shape of this data, so we can just go and define, and we can just say types, and inside the types I'm just going to go and say type.ts, type.ts. so we could just say export. Now we could just use type or interface, whatever you want. So I can just say export interface, and we just say, for instance, you could just call this register, okay, register form, okay, register form, maybe data, register form data. And then of course, as we said, we're just going to be using the I to mean that is an interface, and just go ahead and say we have three things. We have the username, which is a string. We have the email, which is also a string, and then we have the password. So just go ahead and define all the fields, which is also string. So we have these three: username, email, and password. So after defining this, let's go ahead and use it in the form. So on top here, where do we use it? So you can just come here where we have the use form. So in the use form, we can pass in our data by putting these two angle brackets like this, because this use form, it takes in a generics, okay, just like this. So just go ahead and pass in this, and we can import it from types just like this. Okay, so as soon as you put this here, you will just quickly see that the error has gone. Okay, the error has gone, and if you just hover here, you can see they are taking message as a string. Okay, so that is the easy way to handle that, and this is going to repass even here on async function handle register. Inside here, we're just going to receive data, and this is going to be of type I register form data, as simple as that. And inside here, you can just say console.log of course data. Okay, so first of all, right now everything, if it is working, then we should be having our form working. Let me just go back to the UI, and first of all go ahead and do this. So just go ahead and now click on this. So you can see I have the first error: username must be at least 3 characters. Okay, so if I just go ahead and put this error now is going to be gone. If I just don't put, let me just put something like this. Okay, and the password, they say test. Let's try to submit. Please include the @ okay, please include the @ just include that. And then this username cannot exceed 8 characters. Okay, so you can see now username cannot exceed 8 characters. Let's go ahead and put John, and so you have not put the errors for all others. Let's go ahead and put errors for all others. So just simply copy this. So we go to the email. So down here, let's go ahead and put errors.email, and then just go ahead and say errors.email. Okay, and finally let's just go and put for password, and we can just say errors dot, so this is going to be the password. Okay, just like that. What have I messed up? Cannot find P. What is that? I guess everything now is okay. Let me just refresh. Okay, so if we try to submit, okay, so we have 3 errors, and you can see, you remember on the email, if you just remember on the schema, we did not put actually custom email. We simply have z.string and just email like this, but you can see we still have actually this invalid email, which actually just comes by default. Okay, so even if you don't pass anything, they will go ahead and put in this. But of course, you could just go and pass in the object and you pass in the message. Okay, so you can see password is too short, should be this. So just go here and put this. Username cannot exceed 8 characters. I go ahead and put John. That one is gone. Email, let me put some email. And then of course password, let me put test. And you can see they must be that, so let me just put test 1 2 3. Now everything is okay. Let me just say F12, and I just want to go and see my data. Okay, just scroll down here. Let me just create, and you can see we have our data now: email, password, and username. Okay, so this is amazing. Of course, we can go ahead after receiving the data. You can just go ahead and use your reset. Okay, this reset, it can be used inside here where you say reset. Of course, you can just go ahead and use all other things like React hook toast, the loading spinners, and blah blah. But this is the simple way of getting this. So you just go ahead and this time submit. You have the data, and then they reset the form. Okay, so let me just repeat one more time the steps we have gone through. So the first step is to go ahead and create your form. So from this form, just define the normal form with inputs. So you have this input, just go ahead and have your inputs. From that, after you have your form, go ahead and create a schema inside here. So you created a schema where we defined all the rules. Of course, that is after you have installed Zod, React hook form, and Zod resolvers. Okay, at hook form resolvers. So you have those 3 things you need. And then after start by creating your schema. Now the schema is not just going to hold all the validation rules. Okay, you can define your schema here. After you have defined all the validation rules, go ahead and start using the React hook form. The first thing with the React hook form, just define it like this, and then pass in your resolver inside here. You can see like this, pass in your resolver, and then in the resolver you pass in the schema, just like this. Now, as you have seen, we went ahead and created our interface, or this can be a type. It's not a must you just define it as an interface. It can be a type or interface, as we saw in our previous video. The interface and types, they can be used interchangeably. So you can just go ahead and define your interface or your type, and then pass it in the use form, and also in this handle register like this, where you can get your data. Of course, here you can just go ahead now and send your data to the API, send the data to the API, or of course you can use your server action here. Okay, you can send your data to a server action, whatever you just choose, but this is why you put your logic. Now after you have done this, now you can just go ahead. Of course, you have to register all the inputs, and this is also how you put your errors. Okay, this is how you put your errors, just like this. Okay, and that's it. So if you have been following, one thing I can just also say is that the validation rules we have seen, they can be extended. If you go down here, I went ahead and say some other common validations. You can look at more validations. For instance, you can trim or is your data. Okay, you can use this trim function. We have seen how to use min and max. Okay, you can see how to use the email. In the email, you can also use the trim method to remove the white spaces. Okay, you can use, for instance, the refine method. For instance, here in the password, you can go ahead and complicate it, or like do it advanced, whereby you have the confirm password and password. You can go ahead use this refine. Now this refine method is used to pass your own logic. Okay, if you want to pass your own validation logic, you can go ahead and pass it like this. And all this, you can also find more details inside their docs. And you see here, I put a link to their documentation. So you can just go to their documentation and you can read more things they have here. Okay, they have more nice things you can read about, more especially when you come to these methods they have a lot of methods. So you can just come here and you read through all this one and you can add on, but basically that is how you would use Zod, and this forms a basis in all our projects we are going to do next. We are going to be using Zod and React Hook Forms. So thank you so much for watching this video. So see you in the